sales ops is really like they're the cog, and without a really strong, healthy sales ops team, you're not going to be able to execute those orders and get them to your customers on time and in full. So that sales ops piece of what my team does is really vitally important to just making sure that those orders get to that customer on time and in full. And if you can do that, if you can get your orders to your customers on time and in full, you will be able to continue to grow those relationships with those customers and expand that business.
Welcome to the podcast. Here at Startup CPG, we love to tackle technical topics we think you should know about. And today, that topic is sales operations. It's a really critical function at growing businesses that makes sure you receive and fulfill orders the right way when there's so many things that can and do go wrong. Today, we're joined by Alicia Nelson from organic juice shop maker So Good So You. She's going to explain it all, what their team is responsible for, their key challenges, tools, and what makes a good sales ops person. The episode is made possible by our friends at SPS Commerce. You know them as leaders in EDI, that's electronic data interchange. That's the automated data platform that flows all the orders from retailers and distributors directly to you and your supply chain. We're joined by Emily Coran from their team, who's going to share insights from helping hundreds of brands work more efficiently. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone. I am really excited to talk through the So Good So You story here. And thanks a lot to our friends at SPS Commerce for joining us as well. So let's start with some intros. Alicia, do you mind going first?
Sure. My name is Alicia Nelson. I am Sales and Customer Operations Manager with So Good So You. I've been with the company almost 5 years, 5 years this July. And yeah, I've worn a lot of different hats in my time with So Good So You. I came in as just a lead account manager and have kind of grown with the company in my role. I currently manage our account management team, and they really are the ones that manage our day-to-day execution of our orders, making sure that we get those orders to our customers on time and in full. I also work closely with our operations and logistics teams to kind of help coordinate all of that executional support. I also created, along with the cross-functional partners, our project management department. And so I manage that for all of our commercialization, which includes discontinuations, reformulations, and any new product launches or custom customer product launches that we do.
All right. So I love talking to ops people. I'm always so curious about what you guys do, how you spend your days. Can you take me through a sample kind of day for you? Like, what do you get? What do you start doing? What's the beginning of your day focused on? What's some of the actual tactical stuff you end up doing?
Yes. So our internal messaging system we use is Slack. And so that's the first thing that I look at every day. Usually by the time that I've looked at that, there's already a lot of communication back and forth. We set up a separate kind of cross-functional department called SLOPS, which stands for Sales, Logistics, and Operations. And those are really those cross-functional teams that work to get all of our orders out on time and in full. So it's really drilling into that first and foremost and supporting my team with any fires, any questions, situations, scenarios that we need to address. And then from there, it's, just going through email. But then really, because the majority of the sales team that I'm a part of works remotely, it's calls. I'm on calls pretty much all day long. And that can range from internal calls to external calls. But really, all of it is to continue to support the sales team, our operations teams, and So Good So You. So
that's the same for me. I'm up on Slack first thing in the morning, checking out what's going on. What would some of those messages be coming in be about? Like, hey, this truck didn't show up, or this order got delivered wrong, or can someone check on this that it's ready? What kind of stuff are you seeing?
yes, all of that and more. We have each week we work with a 3PL that helps they pack all of our product for us, and then they pick all of our orders. So we really rely on those relationships throughout the week to communicate how are we looking for those orders? Are we going to be on time? Are we going to be in full? So there's a lot of questions related to that. What's the status of the orders? Are there any issues with materials coming in to support the build out of those products? So sometimes we have those types of issues where materials are coming in and they're having to take that material in, turn it around, pack out the product, and then hopefully turn it around to pick it and then ship it out. So we have some of those scenarios. A lot of times, though, it is about just the overall workflow of our 3PL and how they're able to manage all of the orders that we have coming in. We also have some last minute requests from customers that come in. Hey, can I increase my order? Can I get my order early? Hey, can I, reduce my order for whatever the reason is? And so we have some of those conversations we have to navigate. Um, so, and then, like I said, just ensuring that all of those orders are packed and picked and staged and ready for those trucks when they deliver. Sometimes that's not the case. And so then there's conversation around, when can we have those orders ready to ship them out? And then my team really works with the customer then to communicate any issues that we're having, any delays, ensuring that appointments are confirmed. So when that product gets picked up, the truck's on its way, making sure that they have an appointment. Every single one of our customers has an appointment system that they work with. And so, the warehouses that these products are coming into are extremely busy. And so those appointments are really, really important to be able to hit and try to maintain. Um, and so a lot of times my team will have to communicate back with those customers if we're having any issues with getting that product out of our 3PL or if we run into any issues on the road. We also have had a lot of conversation recently around just how busy the warehouses are once the trucks actually get there to actually be unloaded. And it's pretty crazy to think, but some of these trucks will sit there for 6+ hours sometimes. That's not what we like to do. And with different carriers that we partner with, sometimes that will equal detention fees, which means they're going to start charging us money after it's usually like 2 to 3 hours, and how long they're sitting there to be able to get unloaded. The majority of the time, though, those trucks will just move on to their next stop. We do a combination of full truckloads and less than full truckloads, so LTL and FTL. So the LTL trucks, we're not the only product on their truck. They've got other product on their trucks and other appointments they need to hit. So eventually there's that conversation about let's pull the driver, have him go to his next stop, and could he potentially come back? So
All
a lot of
right.
moving parts, a lot of conversation.
And that's probably all before 9 a.m. I know ops
Yes,
people get up
yes,
pretty
yes,
early.
yes. And on the weekends too,
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate just the overall energy with which you can just recite through all of that stuff. Cause I know there's just so much that happens in
So
ops that you have
much.
to deal with, especially in this kind of a sales ops environment. So sounds like you are all over it. And I also really think that's a cool acronym that you guys have. The kids
The
might say that
slaps.
acronym slaps, and it is
Yeah,
slaps.
yeah.
So there we go.
It's it's actually taken off. So, when new hires come in, it's like part of the onboarding process. Because it is really unique but it's really critical and it's been critical to kind of bridging the gaps of, when we do have issues, really having kind of that collaborative feel that we're not sales and ops, that we're sales, ops, logistics all together. And we try to approach things as that. So very collaboratively, like kind of that one team feel, so that we can support all of that.
That's fantastic. I really
Yeah.
like that approach to it because otherwise it's just sales getting pissed at ops when something doesn't actually get picked up. They're like, "No, you're messing with my numbers, and why didn't that happen?" Like this is stuff that we all need to problem solve together, and we all need to act very fast, like a SEAL team. So I really like how you all are thinking about it. And then, can you just tell everyone a little bit more about So Good So You, for anyone who hasn't had the chance to try it yet?
Yes. So good. So you actually launched as a cafe. here in Minneapolis, where So Good See You is based. They had some locations in the Skyway. Um, One of the our founders and current president, Rita, she actually worked for Target HQ, and she left there to really focus in on this cafe idea and business. And through the cafe business, so that, like I said, started in 2014. There was this interest in all of their juicing that they did there. So they had what we now have is our juice shots, our 1.7 ounce juice shots that we sell. And then they also had cold pressed juices in larger 16-ounce bottles. So the idea was that, they wanted to really expand off of this juicing and juice idea. And so eventually the cafes closed in 2019. And then they really switched over to the manufacturing of and focus on the 16-ounce juice line and the probiotic juice shots. There were a couple other iterations in there too. They had cold brew cashew coffee, which I never got to try, but I've heard was amazing. They also did a little work in refrigerated baby food. They had a version of a probiotic lemonade. And then really all of those, discontinued around 2020. And then they really just started to focus in on shots at that point in time. So,
Seems like, yeah, shots just also came out ripping from the
oh, yeah.
pandemic, right? At the
Yes.
beginning, we couldn't get enough of anything that seemed healthy, boost my immunity, anything health and wellness oriented. They were doing really well. And then I also just have heard from a lot of people, including buyers, they like shots a lot because they're high price point, high margin, don't take up a lot of space. So price or margin per inch is probably sky high.
Yes. Yes. And I actually started in 2020. So, in July of 2020. So, right in the middle, I guess more in the beginning of the pandemic. And, it's exactly what you said. The growth trajectory from that point to now has just been amazing to see, and really just it shocks me. Actually, I was just talking about it yesterday. There's these little mighty juice shots that have just continued to have such accelerated growth. Is just it's unbelievable. So
They're pretty cool products. I mean, just they look really nice. It's a clear bottle, like imagine a mini test tube almost, and just looks really healthy. You can see the product inside, which is very beautiful flavors like dragon fruit and this coconut mango that's kind of a teal color, with the green cap that matches the logo that says "So Good for You," and it's a green heart. And it just looks, it has the USDA organic sign on it as well. So it just looks really nice. Probably like for me, the first one that I would gravitate toward would be the energy one because it's like, oh, okay, I could get caffeine. It has 100 milligrams of organic caffeine, and it's basically juice, and it's organic juice. It's 15 calories, something like that, and it has 100 milligrams of caffeine. That's amazing. So it's a great way to get that amount of caffeine, which is, almost as much as you would find in like a Celsius or, well, it's 100 milligrams. I think Celsius is 200. Red Bull is like 120. So you get almost as much as a Red Bull or like, more than a cup of coffee and only 15 calories. And you're not having to worry about a bunch of sugar alternatives, some of which I might not always love. So,
right,
right. It's a
right,
pretty cool,
yes,
that's a pretty cool SKU.
yeah, yeah. So with and that it's all organic, and actually, our number one seller is our Immunity Ginger Cayenne, and so that is the one that, for a lot of people, I mean, including myself, it's one of my favorites. But it's got that spice, but then it also has that ginger flavor in there paired with the orange juice, and so it's a really awesome combination. Um, and that one, again, like for immunity season, the health and wellness, all of that, the pandemic, that's the one that people always gravitate towards. So,
That makes sense. And now let's
yes.
tag in Emily. Emily from SPS Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us. Emily, can you please introduce yourself? And also, I know you are a customer also of So Good So
Yeah.
You, in addition to getting to work with them, so we can hear what are your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Emily Curran from SPS Commerce on our product management team, focusing on our solutions that brands like So Good So You are leveraging in order to receive all of those orders that Alicia mentioned from their retailers, from their customers, and then ship them out and ultimately get paid. So fun story. Yes, I think as Alicia was going through and telling the history of So Good So You, it really resonated with me because I was a frequent customer of that cafe. So there was a So Good So You location in the Skyway connected to the SPS office that I would frequent in the morning for a little bit of breakfast. And then I met Alicia a few years ago at one of our company events, and obviously, being a customer, being very interested in the brand, had the opportunity to not only get to know her and hear the story a little bit more, but tour their production facility. And that's where I was wondering, where did the cashew juice go? That used to be the cashew bliss, I think it was called,
Yes.
was one of my favorites.
Yes.
But made sense in terms of the decision to just focus on those probiotic shots. So the staples in our household are the detox pineapple mango, and then whenever I can get my hands on the sleepy one with the cherry now, I'm all for that. They're really all good. I've tried them all, but I would say the detox are staples for us.
Yeah. The detox pineapple orange ones are great for kids because they're like, sweet enough. They don't have any of the spice or any of the, maybe some of the other, more exotic flavors out there. My kiddo takes one every morning. Other people on the team, their kiddos call it their Hulk juice or their,
Yeah, that is actually
the
what my daughter calls hers.
yeah, yes, yes. So, yeah, that's another great one, and that one's great for summer. As people are out at barbecues and having some cocktails and things like that. It's a great way to start that next morning with a shot of detox and get ready for the day. So
Yes.
yeah.
I did try the energy one though once, Daniel. So we had our sales kickoff event this year, and Alicia and So Good So You were really gracious enough to donate some of their shots for the group. And so backstage before we went on stage, we all took a shot of the caffeine energy one. And let me tell you, that was like the perfect amount of energy that I needed to get through that.
All right. I'd like to see a
That
video
was
of that, the
fun.
whole team taking the
Sure.
shots. We do that with some of our partners at events, by the way. So we'll have to get in on that. Okay, so Alicia, I think it's just super helpful for brands to understand sales ops because as for an early company you're going to start winning accounts and getting orders, and that's very exciting, and you might be just hustling to get everything made in time, get it out the door, and maybe you're kind of making it all work by putting a band-aid on everything. But as you grow and the orders start coming in faster and faster, it's very hard to scale stuff like that. And for a lot of people, that's where sales ops is going to start coming in as a discipline, as people who do that for a living and just really know how to get stuff done, right? Can you just talk about, like, for an early brand, when do you think they would need to start thinking about having the sales ops function in place?
Yeah. I would say pretty quickly, pretty early. Really in the beginning, those initial people that are part of the company are going to be wearing a lot of different hats. But as that growth comes, as it will, you're going to need to be able to really have different departments and different folks that can focus on all of these different areas. The sales ops is really like they're the cog, and without a really strong healthy sales ops team, you're not going to be able to execute those orders and get them to your customers on time and in full. And so my team really, they're the ones that are, as we say, in the weeds, in the day to day with all of the orders, making sure that we're working with our true operations team and our logistics teams to say, hey, how are we doing? Are there any issues this week that we need to be aware of? How is the workflow at our 3PL going? Any issues with things we need to be aware of there? And then we also have a lot of times where issues aren't brought to us beforehand, and our customers are the ones that are telling us, like, hey, this order arrived without all of the items on it. This order arrived late, et cetera. So that sales ops piece of what my team does is really vitally important. to just making sure that those orders get to that customer on time and in full. And if you can do that, if you can get your orders to your customers on time and in full, you will be able to continue to grow those relationships with those customers and expand that business.
And, actually for brands that I've been a part of, it was a pretty early hire, the first sales ops person. And I think, the premise being it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of very pick up the phone, build relationships, get stuff done on a short term kind of basis. Because, yeah, when you have a truck that's sitting outside of a warehouse and now you're paying fees and they might leave. And if you miss that delivery, the buyer's going to be so pissed. And so, just having people who are on it, right? And that is their job, is to be on it and make sure all of the stuff that's supposed to happen actually happens. So it's, what kind of skill set do you think it takes for a person to be really effective in that kind of a role?
I was just going to say my team, I've organically grown my team, and each and every single one of them has a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. But one of the biggest similarities is effective communication. So you have to be able to communicate in terms of, communicating with a carrier or a logistics team or an operations team member that speaks a totally different jargon than when you're talking to a customer or a buyer, and so being able to really know your audience, understand who it is you're talking to. So building those relationships and really understanding, okay, I know this buyer. If I come to her and I tell her that we've got an issue, if I approach it in this way, it's going to be much more received in this way versus this way. So really kind of knowing who you're communicating with, understanding the situation, and communicating that information individually, not just a blanketed approach. They do a really great, fantastic job at that. And, a lot of times there can be unhealthy tension that develops between sales and operations sometimes separately. So that sales operations team really has to be holding hands, really has to be in line with one another to, not take things personally, understand that we're really just here to get the job done, and focus in on that so that, again, those orders get to the customer with, on time and in full, as I've said, but really with as little communication hopefully as possible so that everything is just running smoothly, right?
That's a great answer. And Alesha, let me just apologize to you for all of the ops people, sales ops people in general, that I have actually been guilty of being pissed at when I'm sure it wasn't their fault. I'm like,
Right.
what do you mean the truck didn't show up to pick up the order? We're screwed. They're going to be so pissed. So
Yes.
thank you and
Thank
all
you.
of the lovely sales ops people out there for sponging a lot of that undeserved outrage up.
Yes. We focus. It is a big focus of ours is to make sure that we are, not yelling at one another, that we are really taking the time to truly understand what is it. And at the end of the day, it's just juice, right? So we always do our best and we remind ourselves of that. Like we're not curing cancer, we're selling juice. And so we, sometimes have to take that pause to be like, okay, take that deep breath and then, readdress the situation with a more calm mindset
That is a
and
very
approach.
zen way to think about it.
Yeah.
I hope everyone took a breath and digested that. Although it never feels that way. Like, no, this is our dream. This is my business. That's all I have is the juice. Give me the juice. But I do think that is very true and good for us to remember. And I would add, I mean, effective communication, I think number one, making sure they know what they're trying to get done and communicate it very precisely, no room for misinterpretation, and then being persistent, right? Because the role takes a lot of that. Like you want them to be pleasantly annoying, right? Up to the point of actually pissing someone off to try to get something actually done. So okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then okay, so for let's talk about systems a little bit because in the early stage, you might not have much, right? In the like you can actually get away with that in the early days. You may not want to take the time or just have any extra dollars to be putting a system in place. And like, yeah, you can get by for a while with that, right? Like the order can come in, you can send them an email back and take it however you want it, and you can figure out how to dispatch that order and all that, right? But when you get to the scale that you guys are at, can you just take me through what is the process flow like? Like, how do orders actually come in? What does the system do to all of that? What does that look like to you as a user of a system?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing actually. There's a lot of it that I do not understand.
The
But
magic, yeah.
I'm amazed at. So, through our relationship with SPS Commerce, our orders flow in directly into what we call the SPS fulfillment module. And so those orders come in there, and they actually developed it's called an adapter that lives within our systems and speaks to our inventory system, which is called Fishbowl. So it's great that we've got our orders flowing in via EDI. Awesome. But then how do we get that information into our inventory system? We don't want to be, manually entering in all of our orders because that's a nightmare. We probably have, anywhere between 50 to 75 orders a week sometimes, right? So we rely on EDI for that automation and that functionality to really flow into fulfillment for us. And then this adapter runs in the background every hour on the hour. And any new orders that have come through, it just pulls them into Fishbowl for us. And so my team, again, they go through Fishbowl and then just make sure that did that order pull in correctly? Is all the information correct? There's usually no issues with the data flowing in from fulfillment into Fishbowl. The issues really are more around the order itself. Either it's not hitting our MOQs, it's got the wrong date on it, the wrong delivery date, et cetera, et cetera. So then that's where they take that time to review that and then go back to the customer to ensure that, the requirements we have for our orders are met. So,
I gotcha. Yeah, which does happen all too often. Like, hey, that's,
yes.
cases, not units, or yeah, we can't give you like two of that. You actually have to order a pallet.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and you could work with customers for years, and then all they still sometimes are like, okay, we've been through this about 10 times over the years. It's just again, then knowing your audience and communicating that information back to say, okay, like we really need you to adhere to this, and write the order correctly. So, um, but yeah, that's how we get I would say 95% of our orders into Fishbowl for us.
Okay,
And then
perfect.
Fishbowl, yep, and then Fishbowl, once those orders are in, all of that information then transfers electronically to our 3PL. So we do send an additional spreadsheet via email just to make sure that what they've received matches what we're showing. But again, that all flows directly to them. And so it's just with how much with the scaling of a business, it's just to have that infrastructure built and created is just so vitally important. And you know, you may not know what you need in the beginning or what it's actually going to look like, and that's okay. We have really made improvements and changes to our process as we've grown, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But again, going back to having an EDI partner that really can support you and help kind of guide that growth for you has been huge.
We'll be right back.
Are you going to crush it on Amazon this year? It's such an important channel, but it's so hard to do alone, and most agencies are a total ripoff. We can't afford $5,000 a month and a commission on our sales. They just don't get it. That's why I love our partners at Daybreak. They are full service, meaning they do the creative work, the listings, the logistics, and of course, all the ads, all with the most reasonable retainer out there. I work with them personally. I'm so grateful we have such a good partner to recommend out to you, our community. They do evaluate your product first to see if it might be a fit. So if you want them to have a look, email them startupcpg@daybreak.agency, and they'll do a free audit for you. Good luck, everyone. Got it. Okay, so the orders are coming in and electronically, which means whoever is placing the order, if it's a retailer, if it's a distributor, they can place the order. It goes through EDI and you use SPS. So it's all coming in. SPS has the adapter into Fishbowl, which is your inventory management system. And so the order then can be reconciled against the inventory that you have. at your warehouse, across your warehouses, across your 3PLs, whatever. And then you can figure out how to actually assign inventory that you have to the order that has come in and
Yes.
transfer that information to the warehouse, right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So then the warehouse knows, hey, this order is coming in. You need to fulfill it with this inventory. And then at that point, the warehouse is going to, process that and figure it out and get it ready to get picked up. And then hopefully that happens. Otherwise, your team is getting Slack messages
Yes.
in the morning or when they want to
Yes.
change the order. You figure that out. And then after that happens, then there's a whole nother exchange of info that's coming back in. Like, did it happen? Did what was supposed to happen actually happen? Or did they leave two cases sitting on the dock, right?
Yes.
Reconcile
Yes.
that back up with the inventory and then back up with the sales order, right? So that you can invoice the correct amount.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
You
That's
got it.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
steps that actually get
It is a lot
automated,
of
which is
steps.
nice, right?
Yeah. SPS actually, they created this, and Emily, I'm sure you know what I'm referencing, but they created this slide that really shows kind of in like a circular formation all of the steps that an order goes through or a product goes through in order to actually get out the door to a customer on the shelf. And there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of this has to go right in order for this to happen. But it's a really good way to just show the complexity of it because it's not just, oh, orders received and you pick the order and it goes, there's a lot of things that can happen in between.
So, Emily, let me ask you because you talk to so many brands. A lot of them are using SPS or you're talking to them about using it. And just, I mean, for anyone who's curious, SPS has been the biggest company in EDI for a long time, like, almost being synonymous with EDI. So, you are talking to everybody out there. What is this pretty common profile? And like, for the kind of people that you interact with, mainly are they like dedicated sales ops people? Are they people who are just trying to like take care of a lot of things at the company when they're smaller? And what do you think about the attributes that we were talking about before? Do you notice that in the people that we're talking to about communication and persistence?
Yeah, I mean, I was secretly geeking out over this whole conversation as Alicia was talking. So to your point, like I engage with our customers with brands all the time, and they do the run the gamut from like an emerging startup to a very well established organized enterprise and organization. So that is where there's going to be similarities, but there's also going to be those nuances and differences. And so I think what Alicia has described is very typical of what I would say is in that very small startup to emerging and growing small business where, as she was explaining the process and the sales ops and all of that communication and that business process that's happening. I mean, that's got to happen no matter what. And then EDI can be that tool that brands are leveraging to help continue to streamline those processes and those growths. So that's where it's like you don't necessarily have to start with EDI or even talk about EDI because you still need to figure out everything that Alicia went through and part of your just general business operations. But there is going to become a point when, you're working with these retailers that are going to start to require you to do EDI. And that's where I think some brands, especially newer brands, might be turned off from that because it's foreign, it's new, they might perceive it as this cost or this technical barrier, but really once you get in the door, it's pretty simple because all you're doing is just automating the order processing. You're connecting the orders from your retailers to your ERP, that's where, like Alicia mentioned, you're gonna get even elevated benefits from EDI, but then you can also connect those processes to your warehouse, your 3PLs, any other parties so that now you've got that streamlined audit trail. And then it just becomes having the right people in place to be able to monitor, understand what's going on, and then communicate those exceptions when they happen, which let's face it, they're going to happen. Nothing's perfect. But yeah, I would say it's very on par and on point with what I hear every day in talking to our customers.
What's the worst scenario you've seen of like, I cannot believe that brand is doing like 50 million in revenue and they are writing orders by hand and then they talk to you and they're like, okay, yeah, that would be better.
I haven't seen a writing orders by hand, but what I have seen is a warehouse that had no inventory management, no organizations. Like going back to the sales ops that Alicia was mentioning, like if you don't have someone that's looking at like your orders that are coming in and matching that up with your orders that you're placing with your suppliers, you're all of a sudden going to have this influx, this surplus of inventory, and where are you going to put it? And that was literally this warehouse. Like there wasn't even space in the aisle to like move and navigate. So like they were struggling with like I can't even get my orders out the door. I can't fulfill my orders on time and in full because I don't know where the product is. I don't know where the inventory is. So that I would say was the worst one I've ever seen, which you can't solve that with EDI on its own. There's some other things that need to be solved there, but I think it reinforces the importance of like having these specialized people and subject matter experts to help take a look at the full journey and process and really map that out.
I was just imagining, like, when you see in a TV show or movie, someone going into the home of a hoarder, and it's just like,
100%.
oh my gosh, what is happening
Yeah.
in here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's nice that you guys, hopefully help them clean that up and get everything into a system. By the way,
We're trying. Yeah.
one of the things that I'm most excited about, is QR codes on, probably secondary packaging, I would say, because I would like as we move to that system, once that becomes the standard, and then you can actually on secondary packaging, like the cases that things come in, you can actually imprint lot codes, best by dates, that kind of information into it. I'm just really excited in all the additional information that'll be available through EDI systems like SPS Commerce because of that. So that because you just have to ask that so much. Like, Alesha, you right? I mean, you probably, even though you have all these systems, like you still have to check with the warehouse a lot of times, like, hey, like how much is left of that one lot? And did that actually go out with this? Whereas, I mean, if they're scanning it, right, you're probably going to have a lot more confidence, Alesha.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Um, and the QR codes on the external packaging piece, I think that's 2027. That's a rollout for all packaging, I think. But yeah, I think that the more information that we have kind of built in and tied out so that we don't have the manual piece as much, it just helps, right? Especially as we talked about scaling your business. And we really have to talk about that a lot because sometimes we were a startup company and we're not a startup company anymore. People from when we were a startup company are still here. And so really kind of getting folks to start to change their mindset to evolve as we grow and evolve, that can also be a challenge, right? So um, with automation, with being able to implement some of these new processes for that, there's also that adoption phase of that original OG group to bring them along and let them know, like, we're not losing what we initially did. We're just building off of it so that we can continue to grow. Because if we continue to do things manually and whatever it is, right? That manual piece can be like what you were saying, having to reach out to ops to be like, how much do we have on hand of this, that, or the other? You really need to be able to have reporting of that or access to systems that can tell you that, because the manual piece is not only not a time efficient way to do things, but there can be mistakes that can be caused from the manual, our putting our fingers in it, right? A fat finger or clicking something you weren't supposed to or thinking you did something that you didn't. So the more you can have automation, the better. But also then pairing that with, like I mentioned, with our orders, a review process. Right. Is the information being presented to me accurate and true? Okay, yes, it is. And then, being able to trust in that.
And yes, that is all true. And I mean, I'm just really excited for all of the automation coming and just having it all become easier to use and flow nicely, just so that the benefits become so great that everybody is compelled to use all of these systems really right from the get go, and we just have kind of universal truth.
Yes.
By the way, I was just remembering one of the sales ops guys that I had the pleasure of working with, shout out JP. I could always count on him, which I loved, to just be friends with the people from UNFI and from KHE, which was so important because
Yeah.
we did a bunch of stuff wrong and we needed them to forgive us for it and maybe not charge us things and maybe be okay when the thing didn't come on time. And just, I think his ability to be able to like call them and just, be friends, honestly. And like at the trade shows, they're coming by the booth being like, "Hey, where's JP? I'm friends with," was just, I think, really one of the most valuable assets you can have. Do you find that with some of your team?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was a trade show this last week in on the West Coast, and we have some West Coast team members there, and one of them wasn't able to attend, and the feedback was everybody was asking for her. Hey, where is she at? So that networking piece of really being able to connect with the Unifies or the Keis or the little mom and pops too, that are taking your product in through a Unify or a Kehi, all of those relationships are so huge. Our VP of sales, Jenna Sullivan, she's been with the company for, I think she just celebrated her 8-year anniversary. And she's like, people just know her by name and people have those friendships and connections with her, as well as a lot of our other members of our sales team. So when we have that opportunity to get in front of and really just talk to, right? Not be on a call, not be presenting, but really just talk to these people one on one. Those connections are so important.
Yeah, I really, I really believe that. I used to be a management consultant, and they bring you in for some problem at a client that doesn't really want you there, and you're there, you're like doing project management across 20 different things, and they're like, who is the person who actually became friends with the client, the one person in that one department, so that despite all the 20 things they have to do today, they're going to make time and actually give you the update that you need. That was a huge skill in consulting. And so I really learned that there. And even like, but take like someone like JP, he instinctively is going to try to get on a phone call with someone there. And he's not just going to introduce himself, he's going to pitch them basically our brand, even though we're already working with them, because he wants to make them a believer and, just a full supporter. So we would treat them like a buyer or like an investor, just someone we want to totally buy in and care about
Yes.
us and him and the brand. And maybe, sometimes that curries a favor that you might desperately need.
Yes, yes. We actually carry around coupons with us as the sales team. So, like, anytime we're anywhere, whether it's a customer at a store or, we're at the airport or wherever we're at, if somebody's like, oh, so good, so you can start to have those conversations and here's some coupons, go check us out at your local retailer. I know Jenna, I was on an email earlier today where she was talking with a new buyer at one of our customers. Again, a customer we've had a long established relationship with, but he's new to the desk. And so she's just really, being honest, like being a human with him and saying, like, I used to juice. And, because the new buyer was saying, like, oh, juicing is just terrible. It tastes awful. And gravitating towards our shots because you don't have to worry about the juicing. You can take one of our shots and get all of the health benefits with all of the flavors. And so, Jenna was just kind of reiterating that, hey, I did the same thing. I went through the juicing phase and I tried all these different versions. And so, her just really saying, I've worked here since this brand started because I believe in it and I believe in the product. I think that's something that's just another, layer to really, you know, kind of walk the walk, talk the talk.
All right. That is so good. So you see what I did there?
I
Yeah.
did,
Thank you.
yeah.
I just thought I could sneak one of those in. That's so good. So you obviously know a lot about sales ops. I was wondering about KPIs. Like, how do you guys hold yourself accountable? What do you strive for? If a brand's thinking about setting this function up as they grow, like a sales ops, what's a reasonable metric to try to attain? Whether it's about on time in full or what? Yeah, what do you use?
Yep. So we have three different sales KPIs that we hold ourselves to. It's key customer development, increase velocity, and drive distribution. And every single one of those, we as an individual sales team member, we write our annual goals for ourselves to tie back to those top KPIs. So again, in all of the work that we're doing in the day to day, week to week, month to month, it's all, working towards flowing into our goals, which then flow into our KPIs. And so it's a little hard for folks at first to say, well, I just, you know, I send out sample shipments, right? What does that have to do with, key customer development, right? And so really talking with my team, individual team members to kind of break that down. Yes, what do you do in a given day? But then, getting them to see that everything they do in a given day really does somehow relate up to these KPIs. And all of that work is extremely important, not only to the success of the sales team, but to So Good So You overall, right? Everybody has to really understand what their role is and how that role is a part of all of the other roles, and with that whole of all of the roles together, that really builds up to make us successful. And without everybody kind of having that mentality, you can get unbalanced. And so we're really fortunate in the fact that all of our team members, they give 110% of themselves to their roles, and they believe in and have So Good So You's best interest at heart. So that's how we do it on the sales team, is really taking what each individual team member does and rolling that their goals up into those KPIs so that they understand I am important here, and my role is important, and the work I do every day is important because it drives the success of this team and the company.
It's so important. I really and I mean, like the even sending a sample out is an absolutely critical task. And I mean, I am a crazy person. Anyone who's worked with me knows that like if there's some big buyer that wants a sample, I'm like I'll run to the mailbox, I'll get it out that day. It'll have a personalized note on it. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to have the very latest lot codes that came in, not the thing from a month ago, cuz the fresh is the best. And it's, and that's what I would do. And so for somebody in sales ops who's sending that out, I want them to feel that same way. And it sounds like those kind of KPIs, I think, really reinforce that of like, you're not just, hey, send out a box, I send out a box. Like, no, it matters so much. Every single one of these matters so much. And I don't suggest anyone feel as crazed about it as I usually do. But for
Well,
those,
we do that still. We have that hot off the press request, and it's like, oh my gosh, all hands on deck. We have an amazing sales and marketing coordinator that handles all of our sample shipments for us. And to go back to what you're saying, it is sometimes that first exposure to our brand, right? So we are meticulous on how we pack that box, how the shots are faced in it. So when they open that up, what is their first impression, right? First impression, you know, really can make or break things. And so, again, it's the freshest product we have. The label looks pristine. The cap looks, perfect. Everything, the box is awesome. So that person is getting that full experience.
I love it. And I also think it's important for people to hear, you're part of the sales team. It's, often sales ops functions, they could kind of go either way because there's a heavy ops component. If you meet the people who do sales ops, they have skills that could actually be a really good fit in either department. I personally like sales ops being part of sales just because it feels like it is more sales driven to then really just be hounding on getting the orders filled in the right way. People want to hit their numbers and grow and keep the customers happy. So it feels like actually a little bit more in sales than ops, but it just requires so much of the dance between the two and having a good relationship with both. So I really like how you were talking about that. So Emily, I want to come back to you and just talk a little bit about, because you were working across so many companies. What would you wish for everybody just to know about these kind of systems and EDI in general or SPS as they're starting to grow? Yeah, but based off all of the conversations you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost, what I'd want people to know is like this conversation that we're having right here, like everything that Alicia has talked through is why SPS exists. Like, are we an EDI company by nature? And is that what people mostly know us about? Yes. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is power these connections forward to move commerce forward, move these businesses forward. We really view ourselves as an extension of the So Good So You team, of our customers' teams. And so getting this level of detail and truly understanding what are their business processes, what are their challenges is uber critical so that we can not only deploy a solution, but deploy a solution that actually matters to their business and is going to help them achieve these goals. So that's maybe first and foremost what I'd want people to know is it when you think of SPS, it's not just EDI. It's we really care about our customers, their success, how they're performing with their retailers. And I again, one of my favorite parts of my jobs is building these connections, like I have with Alicia, and seeing the success and the progress of these brands grow. And then two, and I think I talked about this last time with you, Daniel, in terms of like EDI 101, but it really should be a crawl, walk, run approach. And for many of our customers, especially these emerging startup brands, they're going to be using Excel. They might be using QuickBooks. You might be using other systems here or there. So going full in and investing in a whole new tech stack and automating all of your processes is not something that you need to do out the gate. I really like how Alicia explained it, where it's take a look at what your needs are and where you're at and slowly step into that. And that's where I think we can help too, in terms of no matter where a brand is at their journey, whether they just need quick compliance to be EDI to check that box so they can sign their retail agreement, or if they're established with several connections, volumes taken off, their products flying off the shelf, and now they need to look at scaling. That's really what we're designed to do is really no matter where that brand is at their journey, help meet them where they're at and make sure we're walking alongside them to make the right recommendations and support them.
I love it. I really appreciate that. And I think it's something that you can forget about a lot of companies that are out there, especially ones that kind of loom large out there. You're just like, oh, I don't know. But really, yeah, I mean, most people that I know in this industry, and I get to meet a lot of people, care a lot about what they do and are not just, robots automating data exchanges, but rather they care like probably more about the people even than, anything else in this industry.
The
And like,
human element is really important. The whole time we were kinda going down that thread on, like, technology, automation, like, I get it, definitely where the world is going, but at the same time, you can't underestimate or forget about the importance and the power of that human connection.
yes, yes, I totally agree. Um, okay, cool. So as we are wrapping up here, I just also want to just kind of remind everybody, and there will come a time if you don't already work with retailers that require EDI, but some of them will be, and the reason for that is like they don't want to. If you're a small fish and they're a big lake, they don't necessarily want to be getting specific emails from you around your order, right? So some of them will require it. I think it's good just to kind of be prepared for when that happens. So whoever you're going to work with, just I would start the conversation early so that if you need to, in a pinch, check a box that says you're EDI compliant, then you can do it, and then you can try to make that happen pretty quickly. Um, so that just a tip for everybody. And yeah, I think, Alessia, so I know people can also check you guys out on the website on sogoodsou.com. Any other tips for places people can support the brand and try out these lovely juice shots?
Yes, you can follow us on Instagram. We're also on LinkedIn. So feel free to find us on there and follow along. Lots of great stuff, lots of great content coming.
All right, perfect. Thank you both so much. We really appreciate your support of the community and helping all of us learn together. So thanks again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you loved it, I would so appreciate it if you could leave us a review. You could do it right now. If you're an Apple Podcasts, you can scroll to the bottom of our Startup CPG podcast page and click on Write a Review. Leave your company name in there. I will try to read it out. If you're in Spotify, you can click on About and then the star rating icon. If you are a service provider that would like to appear on the Startup CPG podcast, you can email us at partnerships@startupcpg.com. Lastly, if you found yourself grooving along to the music, it is my band. you can visit our website and listen to more. It is superfantastics.com. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.